Meredith and I in this section decided we've already covered the work experience portfolio for level 2, activities 1 through 6. So it'll be appropriate now to go ahead and complete activities 7 through 11, which we'll go ahead and plan on doing today. Again, this is all facility management driven. So if you have any questions whatsoever on the teaching and coaching component side of the curriculum, please feel free to call our mentor line at 866-866-3382, and that would be option number 6. Again, good morning. For those of you who I have not met or spoke with before, my name is Bill Schiaffeletti, recently retired from PGA of America in education over the past decade. Due to my core values, family, and so forth, I've elected and declined not to go to Frisco, Texas, where all of you are very familiar. We're building a magnificent headquarters in Frisco. So enough of that. Let's kind of get started. So for level 2 work experience portfolio, okay, very much like all the other portfolio you've done at level 1. A lot of detail, follow the instructions. So let's go over the activities 7 through 11. So we're going to start off with activity 7, and I don't need to pull this up on the actual slides. I'm going to speak about it. But activity 7 specifically talks about your pace of play at your facility. It's an area where we all know golf's the greatest game in the world. If there's one thing that could damage the great sport, it would be pace of play. It's important, ladies and gentlemen, that you really give us a really good detailed overview of your pace of play. Where are your bottlenecks? What are your challenges? And please don't say everything's perfect, because as well as we are, as great as we are, you're never perfect, right? It takes 1 4-ball, and there you go. So if you're doing well with your performance, you could say continue to monitor its performance, to continue with the positive gain that we're getting. But anything you have to really emphasize and detail your pace of play, that would be activity number 7. Activity number 8 is a really cool activity. Here's where you're interviewing your golf course superintendent. And one of the areas I've talked about my whole career is having that love relationship between your golf professional staff and your superintendent staff, agronomy. So it's important. So this is a really good opportunity to sit down, have a coffee, whatever, have lunch, and just spend a couple hours and interview your superintendent. All the questions are in the portfolio. How'd you learn? What position are you in? How'd you get this position? What are your challenges? It's a really cool activity. Okay, so that's activity 8. Activity 9 is a very popular activity where we get a lot of questions on the mentor line about the open to buy. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. We'll have some fun with it. But an open to buy is strictly managing your inventory, managing the proper levels of your inventory, not overbuying, not underbuying. And the point of sale systems and all the technology we have, fortunately, in the industry today, will create an open to buy for each category, each classification in your golf shop. What's a classification? A classification, in this example we're going to use, would be men's shirts. That's a classification. So every classification you have in your golf shop will have an open to buy. Now, you might want to bundle hard goods into one category. But as far as the soft goods, you want ladies wear, men's wear, junior wear, sizes, on and on and on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an open to buy plan. And we're doing it manually just so you understand when you utilize it in your electronics technology systems where these numbers came from. Okay. So open to buy is take a look at the 5 steps. Look at the first 4 steps. Forecast. Estimate's probably saying forecast. So you're forecasting your sales by the month. You're forecasting your cost of goods sold. What is it costing you to produce that product? You're forecasting your turnover rate. Turnover rate is the average amount of time, how many times you turn over your average inventory in 1 year. And then you're going to estimate or forecast your beginning of your month inventory levels, which we call BOMI, beginning of month inventory. And then finally, step 5 is a calculation, which we'll kind of go over. So what we're going to do today for your portfolio practice round, we will do men's shirts at Crescent Ridge. Crescent Ridge is the public golf course in the case study for those of you who had that, but it doesn't matter. The main thing right now is we're going to concentrate on men's shirts. We're going to concentrate on the type of golf facility Crescent Ridge is. You're not going to buy probably $120 Peter Millars. So again, we'll look at that. So first thing we want to do in figure 8 is to look at the total rounds of golf. And in year 5, Crescent Ridge forecast did 26,250 rounds for the whole year. They're broken down by the percentage. Notice very much like South Florida season in our section, very, very seasonal. Seasonal more wintertime, shoulder a little slower in the summer. Very much like Crescent Ridge. So you're looking at your percent of rounds. We do 11% of the rounds in January, 10% in February, on and on and on. Okay. The sales last year at Crescent Ridge for men's shirts, they did $15,000 in sales. Each month, there was a certain percent of sales based on that 15,000. Notice that a lot of the correlation between total rounds and sales are pretty close. Because you're going to be busier in the wintertime in this particular facility. You're going to be slower in the summertime based on the volume of play. So one thing to keep in mind when you're forecasting is how much play am I doing? Is that going to impact your total sales? Well, I would hope so. I would certainly hope that it would do that. So the first question, professionals, is I'm your general manager. Okay? What are you going to forecast men's golf shirts for year 6? I'll give you a hint. The course owner says you're going from 26,250 rounds to 29,274 rounds. So you're spiking your rounds, 3,000 rounds, give or take. So the first question I would ask all of you, and we're going to get into that great word called metric. I would ask all of you right now as a starting point, when you talk about forecasting, okay, how much you going to do in sales this year? You did 15,000 last year, but I'm expecting more because you're going from 26,000 plus rounds to 29,000 plus rounds. So the first thing I would ask as a forecaster, as a high experience in budgeting, is I would look at a metric called my dollar per round. Last year, 15,000. Here's the number of rounds. So I did 57 cents per round for men's shirts. It's a good starting point. So by starting, before you even do anything else, take that 57 cent, times it by 29,264. What do you get? 16,684. So the minimum number I would expect here, at least you're going to create the same dollar per round figure. I would hope you would. Okay. So 17,000, 16,684 would be about the same. But for us, just for fun, just to simplify this whole exercise, is for sales in dollars, let's put 20,000. Okay? So in column C, and I'm just putting 20,000, you're probably going to put 18,000, 17 to 18 to 19,000 in your portfolio. But I just want to put 20,000 just for easy simplicity as we speak. So we're going to do $20,000 in sales. What percent of sales are you forecasting in January? February, March. You can look at what they did last year. That's always a great barometer. Okay, even though you're doing 10% of your rounds in January, they only forecasted 8% of sales because there's always a hangover after the holiday season, typically in the retail business. So let's say here we're going to do $20,000. Out of that, in January, what percent of sales am I going to do in January? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to do 8%. So if I take 8% of $20,000, I'm going to do $1,600 in the month of January. Okay? What percent of sales is that? 8% of it would come to $11,200. So what you're doing here is, let's really keep this simple. If you take a $20,000 number and you do 10% of sales in January, that's $2,000 in sales. Okay? Done. So column 3, you're estimating total sales in dollars. Remember the number from last year, 57 cents. You got a good spike of play. 20,000 is maybe a tiny bit too aggressive, but I'm doing it just for conversation. Okay? So your sales in dollars is 20,000. These 12 months, when you're done with it, are going to equal $20,000. These 12 months, when you're done with it, are going to equal 100%. So what percent of rounds did you play that month compared to what percent are you forecasting your men's shirts? Okay, clean, isn't it? Now we get to row E. Row E is your cost of goods sold. You're forecasting your cost of goods. What percent do you want your cost of goods sold? You're coming off an 86% cost of goods sold at Crescent Ridge last year. Horrible. Horrible. So you're probably going to be in a 75% range, 80, whatever you feel comfortable. But don't get too aggressive. Because remember, you're dealing with inventory that's been sitting there. You had a high cost last year. So you're thinking about all these things. So if you just put in here 70%, the fun, 70%. Okay? So if my cost of goods sold is 70% and my total sales is $20,000, it cost me $14,000 to produce that $20,000 in sales based on a cost of goods sold. And then each month, you're going to do it. If you have $1,600 in sales, what's 70% of $1,600? That's what it's costing you to produce it. So again, if the sales is $1,600 and you got a 70% cost of goods sold, it costs you $11,200. So that's what that means. Don't complicate it. Okay. The main thing of all is, what is your projection? What is your forecast for cost of goods sold? 70% is probably a little aggressive, coming off at 86%. Obviously, lower it is, better it is, higher it is, you're not getting your gross margin, basically, is what it is, okay? So there you go. So now your cost of goods sold, and everything will be here on the bottom. I'm putting 70% in there. My total annual cost of goods sold would be $14,000 because I'm projecting $20,000 in sales. 70% of $20,000 is $14,000. Okay. My turn rate is next. How many times are you going to turn your average inventory over? High turnover. Man, you can't keep the stuff on the shelf. Man, I just put out 24 dozen golf balls. They're gone in 12 minutes. As opposed to low turnover, dusty, sitting there, not moving. The average, and I don't like to use average because everything's so target, so individualized in this industry, as we all know so well. 2.5 to 2.53 is average. 2.5 seems to be the national average. But again, what does that mean? I've had jobs where I was 2. I've had others where I turned the inventory 4 times. So let's just put down 2. So if your total annual cost of goods sold was $14,000, which came from this column right here, divided by your turn, 2. So 14,000 divided by 2 is 7,000. So you got to keep that number in your mind. 7,000 is your average inventory, okay, based on this right here. So again, everything I've done so far was forecasting. We forecasted everything. So again, don't get too hung up about it. Just kind of make sense. Look at some of your history here. Look at your percent of your rounds. Look at the rounds comparable to the sales. And you can make some logic out of it and really, really look at it, okay? Look at it. Don't get, and then again, you're forecasting each way. Now we're getting into, so we've got all that covered. Now we're looking at our BOMI at cost. What that is you've got to remember your average inventory is $7,000. Remember how we got that? $14,000 was our annual cost of goods sold. That's 70% of 20,000, which we based our total sales by. Just based it, maybe a little aggressive, but that's what we're talking about just today. We estimated our turn rate to be 2. So 14,000, turn rate 2 divided by 2 is $7,000. So for column F, what you're doing here is you're fluctuating your inventory based on the volume of play, okay? Almost like a 12-hole round of golf. You're going to have 4 really aggressive holes, 4 birdies. You're going to have 4 average, which would be close to your average inventory, par, and 4 bogeys, a little above your inventory for your slow season. So when you're filling out your BOMI, your beginning of your month inventory, you always go back 30 days. So if your busy month is February and your average inventory is 7,000, you want your inventory to be higher than 7,000 in average inventory, probably 9,000. Vice versa. In June, you probably want it to be 5,000. So that's what that means. You're moving your inventory levels in order to fulfill your sales goals. You don't want to oversaturate. You don't want to get too much inventory in off season, and you don't want to have enough. You don't want to be short in high season. There's nothing worse than saying, sorry, we ran out of them yesterday. Not a good thing, right? So again, when you got your inventory, beginning of the month inventory, always go back at least 30 days. Because if February is a busy month, you want to have this stuff on shelf on January. Okay? If July is a slow month, your inventory level should be below average in July, in June. So you're moving your inventory this way. Remember that average inventory number. So you don't have to put a total in any of these boxes, but here you're going to put 12 holes of golf you're playing. When you're done with those 12 holes, you're going to divide. You're going to have 4 higher than average inventory, 4 at even, approximately at average inventory, which is 7, and then 4 below. So I would almost look at it as a starting point, 4 months at 9,000, 4 months at 7,000, 4 months at 5,000. And I'm just being really, really rough from 30,000 above, but it kind of gives you an idea. So when you divide it out by 12, your average inventory is 7. That's your par. That's your par. You got your 4 birdies, your 4 bogeys, your 4 pars. Okay? So that's how that works. So finally, in row G is when we're doing a calculation. Okay? And I'm going to pull up that calculation sheet kind of at the end of this because I want to go to another activity and then we'll talk about that at that G at the end of it, okay? So now that we've got our money, we know that we have $14,000 to spend, right? That's our cost of goods sold in dollars and E. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spend the money. Now we get to have some fun. Okay, we got that $14,000. And we're going to ask all of you here to create a merchandise assortment plan. commonly known as an MAP. So we're giving you $14,000. That's your cost of goods sold for your men's shirts that you forecasted. You're going to pick 2 vendors. Who are they? What are the product lines? What are the benefits of selecting that particular vendor? And here's where you're going to put in, you're going to spend your $14,000. So if you want to do Nike, you're going to spend $8,000 with Nike. You can spend $6,000 with the second vendor. And then you're going to break it down, because what this does, it protects your dollars. It protects your checkbook. Because now all of a sudden, I've got vendor 1, I've got $8,000 I could spend. I can't spend 10. If I can, you better make it up somewhere else. Or the sales are exploding, which is always a good thing. So you're spending the money with 2 vendors. Okay, breaking it down. So let's just say this is $8,000. What's your average unit cost? So you want to start from the right to the left. So $8,000, $30 a shirt. How many can you get? And then break it down. So the key thing here is starting with how much you have to spend. What's it cost you? And how many can you get? And then go ahead and do your size run. Do your logo or non-logo, type of patterns, colors, etc. Okay, that makes sense. Now let's go to activity 10. So this is activity 9. Now we're going to activity 10. Okay, activity 10 is enhancing your retail environment. Okay, enhancing your retail environment. And again, in your portfolio, here's what you're looking at doing. You're going to be really honest. Pick yourself apart, punch yourself in the head, and analyze the floor layouts and displays. How well are you doing? That's what this is about. We all know how important it is for floor layout and displays. We know that we can have something that's been sitting in a wrong spot, and all of a sudden it's got ocean property in the limelight right next to the cash out area or whatever, some of your highest prime areas, and you're moving the heck out of it. So again, we know that. So consider looking at each of your areas. Where you're strong, where your weaknesses, and what are your recommendations to improve? Don't put NA, please. Something we're real pleased with it. It's producing 62% of our sales in that category, but we will continue to monitor it if you're happy with that. But this is the stuff we're looking at to really to show your value and your strength to your employer, to your next onward in your journey. So your floor layout, how's your grouping of your merchandising? What's your fixtures? Strengths, weaknesses. How's your signage look? Can you read it? Is it upside down? Is it dog leg right? No, clean. It represents you. It represents your brand. It represents your culture. What do your props look like? Are you using color? Are you strong? Weakness? Where are your weaknesses? So that's activity 10. And then finally, activity 11 is monitoring your performance. Okay? We've seen that at level 1. But we're going to talk about monitoring your performance, how important that is. Get that pull up here. So we want to monitor our performance, which is activity 11. So what is that? Now that you've made, you create a budget, you created an open to buy, you submitted your budget, you're proud of your budget. Now you got to pay attention to it. And this is really where I believe this separates the best golf professionals in the country. Budgeting is challenging. Budgeting can be stressful. But you know, at the end of the day, is you always want to have something in place in case things don't work your way. So that's where monitoring golf operations come into play. Typically, you would monitor your core business areas, your revenue producers, public professionals. You're definitely going to monitor your rounds. It's your number one revenue producer. Number one expense line item you can control as expense is labor. Probably want to monitor that. On the private side, dues. Membership. You might want to monitor merchandise. Teaching and coaching department. How many lessons? Whatever. You want to monitor your performance. So a core business area would be rounds of golf. Total rounds of golf. Okay? And the metrics would be, what do you want to know? Time of the day, junior rounds, junior rounds, twilight rounds, resort rounds, full paying rounds, whatever. How often do you want to monitor it? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? Depends on what it is, right? Who should know about them? Head professional, director of golf, head assistant. And then what's your corrective action for variance? There's the separator. Professionals. So if rounds of golf, you're going to monitor your rounds of golf on a weekly basis. If they're off by 2%, I'm just talking out loud. What do you have in place to try to make up that deficit? That's what this is. So I'm off by 2.5%, which is 310 rounds. What have you done about it, Schiaffeletti? Well, here's what I've done. I sent an email blast out to this particular target audience. We did a special after 1 o'clock. Pay for 3, get the 4th one free. Whatever. Come up with a way. We had the professional meet your PGA golf professional on the putting green between the hours of 12 and 2 and get a complimentary putting look, putting tip, whatever, or bunkers. That's the stuff. Bring people in without trying to use that ugly word called discount. Because once the elevator goes to that bottom floor, it's pretty tough to get back up again. Believe me. I know a lot of you are smiling and you know what I'm saying. So what's your corrective action? What are you going to do to try to make up that deficit? Merchandising. My merchandise sales for the month, I projected to be $10,000. What happens if they're $4,000 or $6,000? What are you going to try to do to make up the deficit? Or if it's on a positive side of it, pat yourself on the back, and you're probably going to have to adjust your budget the following year. So again, monitoring golf operation performance is paying attention to your business. Looking at different areas that are important to your operation. Really important right there, okay? So the last thing I want to kind of cover with you is I want to pull up that one slide on G to show you how to calculate. And again, it is in your PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so this is the final row in the open to buy, G. This is the only area where now you're creating an actual calculation. So here's a good example, and you have this slide in your PowerPoint presentation. It's day 2. So I would absolutely print it out, stick it out in front of you while you're doing this. But it kind of says here, the beginning of the month inventory, BOMI, and the end of month inventory is the same, right? Yes, it is. So for instance, if you lock up the golf shop March 30th, and you have $50,000 in the shop, hopefully April 1st, it will be the same amount of money. So that the end of month inventory, March 30th, and beginning of the month inventory is the same. So beginning of the month and end of the month inventory is the same, basically, okay? So for instance here, so end of month inventory at cost, $16,000, we're doing an October-November deal, plus your forecasted cost of goods sold, which is $2,160, minus your beginning of your month inventory. So this particular plan open to buy calculation will be $3,160. That's all that says. So just making sure you understand that the beginning of the month inventory and the end of month inventory is the same. And that makes 100% sense to you, right? If you close the shop up tonight, you hope tomorrow you have the same amount in the shop. If you didn't, it's either shrink or somebody busted in or whatever. So that's pretty simple right there. So great stuff. So again, one more time, I think this is great on behalf of the South Florida PGA, which I'm extremely proud to be a PGA Master Professional and part of this association for my whole career. So my whole life, basically, it seems, and pretty much so right out of college. But again, utilizing the team that Meredith has put together as really great mentors that care about you. And this is what this is all about. We want to get you to the finish line. You're level 2. Let's get Comma PGA after your name. Again, you're in a career, you're not in a job. Okay? And please reach out to the great professionals that we've assembled on a section level, along with always utilizing the National Mentor Line. Again, at 866-866-3382, and that would be option 6. So on behalf of Meredith, myself, the section, it's been great. Good luck, and look forward to continue watching your journey towards that finish line called PGA membership. So all the best. Thank you so much.